Today we are going to have three speakers: David Elling from the Muskegon Veterans Treatment Court and some of his colleagues and colleague mentors. We're going to have Dr. Eric Fretz, who is the mentor coordinator for Ann Arbor Veterans Treatment Court, and John Wallace, who is the mentor coordinator for both the district and the circuit courts in Macomb County. A couple of minor things. Usually what I would do is I would mute all of the lines, but because we have a small group today, I will leave them unmuted. At the end, after our presentations, there will be a question and answer session. And to ask a question, just use the public chat box in the lower left corner, and I will read off the question and have our speakers answer it. And I wanted to let everybody know that we are going to have some additional upcoming webinars in the next couple of months. On August 7th, we are going to have some attorneys from the U.S. Attorney's Office Civil Rights Unit talk about specifically veterans' rights in employment, housing, and the Americans with Disabilities Act. On August 21st, we're going to have the Ann Arbor VA Medical Center's MST coordinator talk about military sexual trauma and how to talk to somebody who discloses when they disclose that they've been a victim of military sexual trauma, and then also what resources are available. And then in September, we're going to have two webinars. One of our staff here, Bobby Dixon, is going to do an introduction to veterans benefits, and then we're going to have a panel talk about employment resources for justice involved in homeless veterans. Okay. So first, our first speaker is going to be David Elling from Muskegon Veterans Treatment Court and his colleagues, and I will turn it over to you, Dave.
Oh, thanks, Lynn. Appreciate it. Dave Elling here, and I also have Mike Bow, who's a retired Navy, and West and Lil Spike. West is a Vietnam vet, and Lil and West have been married for 45 years, so she's lived with a guy with post-traumatic stress who's service connected for it. So we were part of our team that went through the whole Justice Department training program and went to Washington, D.C., and were part of the first boot camp for mentors graduating class there. So and our court, we initiated it on January 2014, and we currently have 17 individuals in our court. We decided to take the high-risk, high-needs veterans initially, and we figured if we could help those guys and gals get fixed, we could, everybody else would be a piece of cake. And the first 8 that we took into our court were all Iraqi Afghan vets. All had attempted suicide in 2013, and since our court started, today in our court, luckily, knock on wood, none have reattempted, and we have since graduated 3 after 14 months into their phase 5, and they're still doing well. So pretty proud of our court. Our mentors, we were fortunate here in Muskegon County that we had a Veterans Service Center that was up in 1990. In 1994, we formed the County Department of Veterans Affairs through unique millage from the state, combining the career field, the 2 laws. And we have a nonprofit corporation, West Michigan Veterans Incorporated, that actually administers the county department. And that's, so we had all these resources in place, a full-blown Veterans Service Center, and the trust fund, and we run the Soldier and Sailors, and it's a nonprofit, we're able to do that. So we had, when they came for the courts to get certified, there's 300 municipalities applied for the 30 slots to the Justice Department. We got one of them, and it was because we in Muskegon County already had a sobriety court, so we knew how to run specialty courts. And the other was we already had supportive services in place. So that we had a big leg up, I think, coming into the court because we knew where the resources were to help individuals as we were working through that. So along with that being said, because of the Veterans Service Center, all 14 of the veterans organizations in Muskegon County had set on their advisory committee to that center. And so we were connected with all the veterans organizations, and so we all knew each other and who the individuals were who would most likely be a good mentor. And so we have, 16 mentors now? Yeah. 16 mentors now. we have a great resource of individuals who are willing to and wanting to step up. And I understand most of the courts, that's a big problem they're having, is trying to find somebody, an individual who wants to do that. Because it's pretty daunting. You're taking some very, very damaged individuals who have made a real mess of their life and in the court system and trying to help figure it out. But we're learning as we go along through it. It's not easy peasy, but the results we're having so far have been pretty gratifying for us, and we learn every single day. As the new hurdle gets put up and a new challenge is presented to us, we find a way to fix it or get around it. Lil is our retired teacher, and so guess who is our main training person for our mentees is Lil, and we actually put a packet together where we start training the mentors. And we'll usually assign somebody new who thinks they might want to be a mentor to one of the established mentors. And we meet on our court day at 10 o'clock in the morning for about an hour and a half, just the mentors, and we discuss every mentee. They go around who's been assigned to them. Most of them have 2 or 3 veterans that they're dealing with in the court that they're mentors for. And so we address each individual, what's come up, how they do it. If there's a roadblock, that we brainstorm, how do we remove the roadblock, what do we have to do, what do they have to do. We really believe in the sanctions and rewards portion of it. As our judge said, he has a plan A and a plan B, and it depends on how the mentee takes ownership, or if they got dirty out of alcohol or for a drug or something like that. There's always punishment, but there's always a reward also if they're progressing through the phases as they're going through and stuff. So, Mike, would you like to say something? Mike Brown.
The uniqueness we have of our mentors is that we have a pool of anyone from Vietnam vet to the Persian Gulf vets. We've even got a couple now. We've one now that's an Iraqi era vet. I mean, the lion's share of our mentors are the Vietnam vets, but we've had meetings with some of our graduates and asked them afterwards, about why they stuck around and why they did it. And they've all identified at the beginning that none of them liked us to begin with. We were the man, so to speak. And about midway, they came to, and we had one now that's even trying to become a mentor. So, the program that Dave here has set up is working really well, and we couldn't do it without the mentors, and obviously that's what's going to continue to be a success.
Yeah, what we do is if somebody new wants to come in, like I said, we assign them to a mentor, and they sit through, and they may sit through a month or 2 months of just listening to what goes on, and it's quite a commitment to say, yeah, I want to get involved with somebody else's life and see if I can't make a difference in their own life. You're always worried about saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing, and part of the deal with a mentor is you got to set the boundaries up early on, and it's just the standard stuff is you're not an ATM machine, you're not their daddy, you're not their best friend. You're there to help them, guide them to the resources that they need to keep going forward, or to help clean up a mess if it was there, or housing, whatever the case may be, where the resources are. And that's the thing you do to be careful of, because you don't want to become an enabler. And that's kind of easy to do. Here, let me fix that for you, because all the personalities that we have who want to be a mentor are usually the ones who fix problems for themselves and other people. And it's real easy to step over and say, well, here, let me do that for you. Let me do this for you. And that's not really the answer. You've got to give them the tools and let them make the effort themselves and be responsible. They got to take the ownership for it. They got to buck up. And we found with the mentees in our court, they all sit over on one side of the courtroom as a group, like a platoon, if you will, and they sit there together, and then their family members and the mentors sit on the other side of the court, or friends, whoever happens to be there. And that's the group is. So that's the group that works together, and they come together, they talk amongst themselves. And now that we've gotten 3 of our individuals who have progressed who have graduated in phase 5 now, they're just, for the next 6 months, they'll report back to the probation officer. They don't have to come to court. some of them still come to court. They just want to be there at that court. And again, like I said initially, they don't have wanted nothing to do with it. Only make this go away, make this DUI go away, or make this domestic violence go away, or make this alcohol thing go away. But at about some point in there, it goes from, and you can understand why we want to be there, why the mentors are there, why do you care about me? That was probably the biggest thing. I think West, Mr. Reverend Spike West happens to be our chaplain also for our group, and so he is actually the spiritual advisor, if you will. If asked from all the mentors, he's not assigned any one specific mentor. And our kind of feeling is, I don't know what anybody's religious belief is, but we think here that your life's kind of a three-legged stool. You got the psychological, physical, and spiritual. And if one of those legs of the stool is weak or not working so well, then you're going to fall over and time to sit down. So we have available to them, if they would like a chaplain, Christian-based, it's on their request. It's not pushed on them or anything at all like that. And West has a group that meets, and what do the guys do? Come from the court, lost their way spiritually, and they're really, really happy that piece of the puzzle happens to be there. And as a matter of fact, we have a second, one of our mentors who was a retired Army, who was a chaplain in the Army also. So that's just the thing that's there, a piece of that puzzle. We feel that that's a holistic approach to the individual is what kind of service they need. And a lot of times it's just counseling. I found the biggest thing, though, with the vets is that it's coming to believe that somebody really cares about them. And I think the uniqueness for us early on, I'm a Vietnam vet, so is West, and most of the mentors were Vietnam vets. But to have the younger Iraq and Afghan vets, and even the first Gulf War, like Mike is here, they really respect Vietnam vets, which kind of took us back a little bit because they said, because of the what we went through, the training, the armament, a lot of things came out that made their life better in the military because of maybe it's so gray hair that most of us are sprouting now that they're like a father figure or something. I don't know what it is, but they respect us, they listen, and that's really kind of a cool thing. And so back to the mentees, first guy who graduated wants to come back as a mentor himself. This guy would have to be 8 years in the military, 2 combat tours, for the NCO of the year for the Army, and he got into trouble. Just he was in a really dark place, and he's in phase 5 now, and they have to stay on the program for a year, stay clean, stay squared away. But he wants to come back now and be a mentor to help out these other vets. He said, I think I'd be a great mentor because I had been through this minefield and I found my way out with help. And he said, no, I want to go back through there and get these guys that are lost on the other side and bring them out too. That's that old NCO leadership mentality of don't leave your guys behind.
Yeah, he's more of that modern one too.
Yeah.
The train custom.
Exactly. He's the Gulf War guys. So, but what we do is we assign him to a mentor. He's a shadow mentor. He doesn't involve himself with a mentee or counsel them or anything else. He's just there learning and understanding what goes on. But the other guys see him moving from side A, the mentee side, to side B, working to be a mentor. And they say, well, this guy, there must be something to this program because these guys stayed in for 14 months and they want to keep going with it. Maybe I should pay attention. Maybe there's something here. So there is that light bulb goes on partway through where they understand or they see that this is a good program. How much time? You cut me off anytime you want to. Mike, I know.
Thanks, Dave. This is Lynn. I just wanted to thank you very much for you and your colleagues to provide that great summary of Muskegon. And we're going to actually come back to you when we get to the question and answer section, I think towards the end of this webinar. But right now I am going to go to our next speaker, which is Dr. Eric Fretz, who is the mentor coordinator for the Washtenaw County Veterans Recovery Court. And I am going to turn it over to Dr. Fretz.
All right. Thanks very much. How's my audio? Is it okay?
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Awesome. So sorry to be a little bit late there. I was running around outside doing some chores and looked at my watch and said, oh, hey. So just as a quick overview of the Washtenaw Court, the court itself started before the mentor program, obviously. The mentor program got initially formalized in late 2013. And just overall for our mentor program, compared to some others that I've seen, it's a little more informal. We don't none of the mentors actually keep records of what they're doing. They file essentially short little reports, really just emails to me to sort of let me know how things are going. The vast majority of that is just that they tell me they met with their vet, or they texted, or however they contacted them, however the vet prefers, and that everything is basically okay. And the mentors are encouraged to attend the court, but mentoring basically occurs outside the court. So the way that the Washtenaw Court does it, it's the mentor relationships are conceptualized as something that is occurring outside the court and sort of on the mentee and mentor's time, which tends to work pretty well for us. A lot of our justice involved veterans skew towards the younger demographic in Washtenaw County, and so we have a lot of Iraq, Afghanistan guys, a bunch of whom are students, and a number who are younger and are essentially employed full time. And so the Wednesday, 9 a.m. for 2 hours thing doesn't work too well for them. So we probably have, on any given court date, we might have 2-3 mentors there with their vet if they're on the docket, but we don't have all the mentors coming to all the court sessions. And then I, as a coordinator, am kind of the point where the information flows through. I'd basically make a report to the judge each court date to sort of say, here's what's going on. Here's some significant things that have happened with this veteran and his mentor, or here's something the mentor reports that we might need to look into. So if the vet discloses that they're having a problem with anxiety and they're worried they're going to lose their job, or they're having a problem getting to their testing on time, we can identify that and then get some court resources on it. And basically our judge does a really good job of asking this part of his interview each time with each vet, so to say, hey, what have you been doing with your mentor? I'd say our overall goal with our mentor program is to provide, kind of like was mentioned earlier, provide that sense of fellowship. One of the big things that the vets, or really any vet, talks about, particularly the justice-involved vets talk about, is that they're missing that sense of belonging that you had in the military, that sense of being on a team. And Judge Easthope is really key on sort of creating that sort of family sort of vibe and having everybody be accountable to each other. And it's actually, I think, pretty effective. Let's see. And as far as the program itself, like I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of younger mentors because we have younger justice-involved vets, so we do a lot of recruiting from the Student Veterans Association on campus. That proposes a little bit of a burden for me because the SVA guys are really only here for 2 or 3 years at most, but we've been very successful with recruiting and training, so even though we have a pretty high turnover, it works well because, again, usually people are in the program for about 18 months to 2 years, and the student vets are here for 2 or 3 years, so it actually overlaps pretty well. We also do folks from the American Legion of the FW and referrals of folks who just know vets who want to serve as mentors. We do a half day of initial training. It's a set of PowerPoint slides and some role play activity, and then we do intermittent ongoing training with the vets. We've established a 501c3 charitable org to fundraise at arm's length from the court. So far, that's raised about $10,000–$11,000, and that's useful for things that the court might not have leverage on. So, if somebody's one of the vets uses a bike to get to work and his bike got run over and destroyed, we can get him a used bike. We had a veteran with some sleep issues and not quite indigent, but not flush with cash by any means. And so we were able to get him a new mattress because he had some serious sleep issues, and he's reported that's really helped, and he hasn't had any late tests since being in better sleep, so that works well. Our mentors, the expectation for our mentors is a minimum of 2 contacts per month, so they basically check in with their mentee before each court session and let me know how things are going. That's the bare minimum. There are some vets that, I think as the earlier presenter was mentioning, that as it starts out, a lot of times they're very arm's length, very much sort of, I'm just going to get this done and get out of here. I don't need to talk to you. I got nothing to say. I'm fine. One of the veterans that I'm mentoring now, literally 3 months, every text message, every phone call, just was completely neutral, wouldn't invest any energy, just would answer my questions with single-word answers and then get off the phone as fast as he could. And after 3 months of that, which frankly does get fatiguing and feels almost pointless, he sat down next to me after court and said, I need to talk to you. I have he was talking, and we had a really deep conversation about some of the substance issues, and he was needing some help about some things. So it's a very interesting lesson there for me that, sometimes you got to encourage your mentors to keep reaching out, because a lot of times that the mentor is out there sticking his hand out to shake hands and to help somebody up, and it feels weird standing there with your hand sticking out when no one grabs it back. But if you do that long enough, they will reach out. I make regular reports to the judge, and the mentors basically make a regular report to me, or if there's something urgent, then they can call me anytime. We have some really nice success stories. Like we had the one individual that got a new bike for him. I've had some vets, actually, some of the justice involved vets actually come take audit courses that I teach at U of M that were helpful for them for the business they were going to start. Now that business is up and running. We've had vets, mentors who have actually, taken their vet and their vet's spouse and their spouse or their significant other out to dinner. So basically, essentially, double dating. And that was a mentoring relationship, obviously, that worked particularly well. It was very sort of supportive. And then another time where there was a guy who was really struggling, and one of our mentors just, grabbed his ex and said, "Hey, do you want to just get together and play Xbox?" Because this guy was really upset, having a tough time, and the vet just went over and took his gaming console over there, and they played Xbox, all night and talked, and got things a little more stable. So a lot of really good things going on, with the mentors. And I think once they get that sort of military buddy to buddy kind of thing going, it's usually a really helpful part of the program. And we did our last exit survey for our last set of graduates, 90% of which had mentors. They all rated it at the top mark. So basically they had to choose, are they highly satisfied or dissatisfied. And they were all very satisfied with their mentor program. They thought it was very beneficial. As of last quarter, we've been able to get to 100% match. So every single one of our vets in the court has a mentor. And let's see, we've got I think that's about it, really. We basically we're just going to keep recruiting, new mentors, and then once we get 3 or 4 of them in the queue, we do their paperwork and do the training. And if you want to go to the next slide, I think, this slide, I guess I'm looking online, and it seems like maybe most of you are actually not seeing this slide, right? Everybody's dialing?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, so I guess I won't belabor this slide then. So this is if you want to copy this, or maybe I'm assuming it'll be sent out, this is a slide that I made up to try and show all of the moving parts for our court, because I was having a hard time trying to explain it to people. And I was going to talk through this slide, but probably not much point. So, and like I said, if you get it, if she does send out the slide deck, then we can talk through it. As I mentioned, the program is now 100% match. We try to match people by demographics. I don't know if that was talked about earlier, but we really try to make sure as much as possible we get age and theater of operation and sort of era as best as possible. But when that isn't possible because we don't have an infinite supply of mentors, we found that it's actually pretty flexible. And as was mentioned earlier, pairing a Vietnam era vet with a Gulf War vet or even an Iraq Afghanistan vet can actually work pretty well as long as we kind of find that common bond. So we found that one of the biggest things we try to do is match by combat experience. It's a pretty unique set of stressors that occur for the folks that have been in combat theaters and been under fire. So we try and make sure that we're matching that common experience up. That's the one thing we really try to do. And one thing we don't do, obviously, is we don't mix genders, male to female, female to male. We do have about 5 female mentors, and we at any one time had between 1 to 2 female justice-involved vets in our court program. But it's been interesting to find that even though we tried early on to match, by age and make sure that Army with Army and all this stuff, and it really doesn't really matter, like a Marine grunt and an Army grunt, even though they're going to joke with each other a lot, they still got the shared experience that works pretty well. And I think that's most of it. I think I sent a few more slides that talk about sort of our do's and don'ts. I don't know. I'm not sure whether we really want to take the time to go through all that, or it's just a couple of lists. and more interesting sort of to look at as I sort of talk about it rather than reading the PowerPoint to you. So let me know let me know what you think about whether we should go over that or just send it out. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll definitely send it out. I would say, how about answering how you coordinate with some of the community services and other organizations when one of your participants needs something that maybe you mentioned the mattress from the that you were able to pay
Sure.
for through the 501c3, but when you have when your mentors come to you and say, hey, my participant needs X, Y, and Z, how do you go about sort of doing that coordination?
Sure. Mostly it's a partnership between myself and Darius Robinson, who is the actual vet coordinator for Washtenaw County. So he's kind of the center of the wheel around which everything rotates, and obviously the judge too, but the guy who's pushing the paperwork and keeping his finger on everything all the times is really Darius. So I will let him know what's going on, and then I will say to him, for example, with the bike, somebody needs a bike, and I will tell him, I know I have a friend who runs a nonprofit that does bikes. Let me partner with him and get this bike. And Darius says, fine. Or we have the guy with a sleep problem, and I confirm with Darius that we really don't have like funds laying around to just buy people mattresses, but then I also control the 501c3, and so I can just go to my board there and say, hey, this is what I want to do for this vet, and the board says thumbs up, and then we just go buy the mattress. So that's pretty straightforward. If it's something that's more medical related or something that can be handled by the infrastructure that's in place in the county, then it's different. So if it's a housing issue and he needs a different housing or needs a voucher or he needs emergency rent or something that could be handled by some of the great resources that the county has. We have really great county veterans offices here and some really sharp guys and ladies running that. And so they've really been really on top of things if we need help with getting somebody sort of emergency housing or a short-term thing to pay for a rent deposit or something, or getting them rolling on a disability claim or whatever it is. So I don't mess around with stuff that other people do well. And on the mentor side, it's sort of like I'm like the last little bit of like I just sort of fill in all the little tiny gaps, So when there just wasn't an easy way to do the whole mattress thing, I said, well, that's simple, right? I mean, we have this pot of money that's for helping out the vets in the program, so that's fine. Or something like getting some Starbucks coffee cards, little $10 coffee cards, and giving those to the mentors so that they can take their mentees out to coffee to sit around and sort of get the mentor relationship going. So they all get a coffee card to start things off.
That's great. Good. Thank you. Thanks. I am now going to transfer it over to John Wallace, who is our coordinator for the two Macomb Veteran Treatment Courts in both the District Court for Judge Fuca and the Circuit Court for Judge Switolski. Okay, John.
Are the slides going to be shown?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So I'm presuming that we've got the title slide up. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. As Lynn indicated, I'm the mentor coordinator for both courts in Macomb County. And the reason we have more than one is Macomb County has a bit of a different model than most other veterans treatment courts. It's established on a county-wide basis with the plan having the additional courts activated as the requirements become known. For example, we've set kind of like an informal limit of 25 vets per court. Judge Mark Switolski in Macomb County Circuit presides over that court, and the reason we have it in circuit is we've got vets who've committed felonies, so they are up at the circuit court level. Judge Kerry Fuca runs the Veterans Court in the 41B District Court, and that's for Harrison Township and Mount Clemens. And like I said earlier, we have a plan to expand, so we've got a couple of judges on standby, one in circuit and another one in he'll be in the Sterling Heights District Court. We haven't had to expand yet. We've kind of bumped up against our limit. Currently, we've got approximately 40 vets in the program, about 22, 23 in Judge Fuca, and about 17, 18 in Judge Switolski's. And just a little overview on meetings. when we first started our court, we were only going to meet once a month. The second Thursday with Judge Fuca, third Thursday with Judge Witalski. But the judges found out that especially for the individuals who needed more assistance, once a month wasn't enough. So they went to weekly, especially for those individuals, or for all individuals in Phase 1. And I basically told the judges that I can't have the mentors come every single week because the vast majority of the mentors that I have are full-time employees. So they agreed to have them come, as we initially agreed, once a month. Second Thursday with Judge Fuca, third Thursday with Judge Witalski. And, oh, by the way, we're having I believe it's our 5th graduation coming up on August 6, 2015. So could you go to the next slide, please?
Okay, got it.
And this is just a standard slide that I prepare. I give a lot of presentations. And when I initially started on this journey, as I like to call it, went to the Webster Dictionary on exactly what the definition of a mentor was, because that term's kicked about quite a bit. So trusted counselor, guide, tutor, coach. And as far as our mission, we just want to make sure that the vet gets all the services that he is entitled to once he is admitted into the program. And I've got a saying, only a veteran can speak to a veteran like a veteran can. And the example I give is I'm a 22-year Army retiree myself, and I can go up to a 3-year Marine Corps vet, and he can say something to me that I wouldn't take from anybody else, and I can give it right back to him. So it's that bond that the other speakers have discussed that veterans have amongst themselves. Next slide, please.
Okay.
And again, it's just what we want to try to accomplish as far as receiving the services they need. And as the first speaker said, they're not an ATM. Well, what I advise the mentors in our training sessions, you're not a bank and you're not a taxi service. And once they get an established relationship put together, then they can go ahead and expand their relationship to giving a ride every now and then or whatever else they want to do. But I caution them, particularly at the start of their partnership, that they do it at least professionally until they get to know each other a little bit better. Next slide, please.
Okay.
We, as has already been mentioned, the court relies heavily on the veteran mentor for a lot of different reasons. And our mentors have to be veterans. In some courts they're not, but in ours they have to be. And I don't want the mentor to be a first sergeant or drill sergeant, somebody to provide encouragement, but also give him a kick in the fourth point of contact when he needs it every now and then, because I'm sure some of you know that the vets sometimes are in a rut, feel sorry for themselves, and they need that extra encouragement to get them through the program. Next slide, please. And the veteran needs to understand, as the previous speakers had mentioned, that they're not alone. There's somebody with them. And as had been discussed, I believe, by Dr. Fretz, we have experienced a really nice phenomenon, for lack of a better term, where the veterans who are in the program together, they form a bond amongst themselves. And some of the fellas and gals have emerged as informal mentors and get a hold of these guys and gals on their own outside of court, have friendships, get things established, so that camaraderie is very helpful in getting these individuals through the program. Next slide, please.
Okay.
I've got, it's the Veteran Mentor Coordinator, my role, recruit, train, supervise, and coordinate mentors. And I'm going to, the rest of my presentation is going to be specifically regarding recruiting and training and assisting in the retention of veteran mentors. Next slide, please.
Okay.
We had, in Macomb County, we had our first Veterans Treatment Court session in both courts in April of 2012. And I had started working on Veterans Treatment Courts back in 2011. I found out about the program through an article in the newspaper. Grand Rapids was going to have a presentation by the Military Officers Association regarding Veterans Treatment Courts. And the point of contact's phone number was in the article. Got a hold of him. He told me about the Ingham County Veterans Treatment Court that had already been established by David Jordan. And I went to a court session and finagled an invitation to go to Judge Jordan's mentor training session. And that was back in March of 2012. And as I show on my slide, it created a dilemma. And why it created a dilemma, it was an 8-hour training session held at Cooley Law School in Lansing with about 15 different speakers. And I was trying to figure out how in the world am I going to do that on a regular enough basis logistically. And I kind of filed that away for future memory. But coincidentally, in February of 2012, the court team from Macomb County had a community rollout in Macomb County Circuit Court. And we had, coincidentally, about 10 to 15 speakers covering all aspects of the formation and operation of a Veterans Treatment Court, and it was videotaped. So I basically had an epiphany. Why don't I use that DVD in my training sessions? And that's what I do. Next slide, please.
Okay.
I conduct my training sessions on an as-needed basis. By that I mean when my supply of mentors starts to run a little low in conjunction with the veterans in the program, I schedule a training session, and I have them on Saturday mornings at the Mount Clemens Public Library. Saturday mornings because, as I mentioned earlier, most of the veterans that I get work full-time, so Saturday morning works the best. Mount Clemens Library has great facilities, plus the price is right. It's free. I go ahead and show just portions of the videotape, and I provide them a paper copy of all the supporting documents that were prepared for that. So they've got really a nice referral document for the actual establishment and the operation of the court. However, I spend the bulk of my time going over my mentor manual, and I've got duties, responsibilities, and what we expect of the mentor, how court sessions are conducted, because both judges run their courts just a bit differently. And I also have them, a mentor who's already in the program in attendance, so he can answer questions because obviously the new ones are curious as to what they can expect and some of the pitfalls, and I found it useful to have an experienced mentor there at the training session to give them their perspective. And I also like them, prior to my assigning them a mentor, I'd like them to attend at least one session in each one of the courts so they, first of all, know where it's at and also see how the judges interact with the veterans because both have different styles. And in addition to that, I conduct additional training on an ongoing as-needed basis. For example, I had the lady who runs our Macomb County Veterans Service Office out talking about the array of benefits that are afforded through our county service office. And then I had a lady who runs a program through Michigan Works, an experimental program to employ veterans. And also I try to have, I haven't done it yet because I'm getting funding sorted out through a 501c3, to have the veterans go out to the Buffalo Veterans Treatment Court. That was the first one. They've been designated as, I think it's a training Veterans Treatment Court, and they've got a one-day session where they cover, their history, what they do. Then you actually sit in on a session with Judge Russell, which I found enlightening. And then I heard the first speaker talk about going out to the Veterans Justice conferences. I've been to two last year, the one out in California. I went through that mentor boot camp, and I'm going to be going to the one coming up here end of this month in Washington, D.C., and I'm taking a couple of my mentors along to do that, and I want both of those individuals to go through the mentor boot camp. We also have a 501c3 for the same reasons that Dr. Fretz had stated, and as far as recruitment, I haven't really had to do much more than have the mentors put it out by word of mouth that we're looking for them. We have on our court website a standing advertisement for folks who are interested in being mentors to give me a call. And I haven't really had retention being an issue, and the reason I say that is I had an initial group of about 20 individuals who went through my first training session, and that was back in March of 2012. And of the 20, I've got 15 still with me, and right now I've got 28 trained mentors. So that's sufficient for what we have to do, and I'll start beating the bushes again for adding a few more, because I'd like to get to be about 35, because I found that the court population does not grow on a regular basis. It grows in fits and spurts, and I don't want to be caught short-handed. So I'm subject to questions, Lynn.
Great, thank you. Lots of questions. Actually, thank you, first of all three of you, for participating. I really appreciate that. Why don't we start, John, with you. Tell me a little bit about what advice you might give to a new mentor coordinator who's just getting started. You mentioned that you have a manual, that you attended the Ingham County training. If someone is brand new to the role, what would you say would be their best first steps?
You say for a mentor coordinator?
Yes.
Well, I'd recommend that he do the same thing I do, find out who other mentor coordinators are, and go and spend time with them to see how they run their actual program.
Well, so thank you all very much, and enjoy your weekend.